Don't postpone yourself acting, being, feeling, thinking, reflecting, applying your consciousness in the ways that you wish to apply it. To apply your body in the ways you wish to apply it. Again, with integrity and respect. And when you no longer wait for something else to occur before you start acting on who you really are, then immediately those things that you think you desire or actually need will wrap around you, behind you, and will start supporting you effortlessly without you having to be focused on them as separate objects, such as, oh, money, or resources, or friends, or different location, or new car, or different career, or when is my boss finally going to fire me? All these things, all these postponements are reflecting you, your own postponement. And when you start moving, just because you can, just because you see that, regardless of circumstance, you have the freedom to move to a great extent, to move your life in a great extent, to move yourself, to be focused on your state of being and not on your circumstance, to move from a space of recognizing only your state of being and not your circumstance. Then all these things that are objects to you, and objects are always obstacles. As soon as you notice an object, it becomes some kind of obstacle, even though it's not really there. But when you don't turn anything into an object, if that makes any sense, when you don't objectify anything, when you don't turn anything into anything, you just leave it be the smoke that it is, the empty energy that it is. And you don't say, oh, this has some kind of power over me choosing to do what I love to do. I will wait for that to happen before I start acting to the best of my ability, or to at least imitate, get as close as I can to the thing I think represents my actual desire that maybe requires 100K. But that doesn't matter. I'm going to act in the best way I can to come as close as I can to that result and enjoy it as if it is as real as the real thing. Because it is. The process, the experience is what's real. The symbol is just a symbol, and it moves around. It's a moving target all the time. Oh, I want this. Oh, I want that. Oh, I want that. Those are just your mental representations that interpret, that translate your true inspiration wanting to come through, wanting to burst free, wanting to explode. Does that make sense? So don't be too focused on the representations of your joy. Let them be what they are. Just notice they are symbols. And they represent, all of them combined, all these things you think you desire, whether they're activities, careers, or objects, or material things, or money. All these things just represent who you know yourself to truly be and not act on in this moment. That's why it seems so appealing to you, perhaps, to have $1 million. Just as an example, a general example that applies to many people. For many people, it's exciting to have the idea that they have $1 million. Why? Because it represents freedom to them. That's all it is, which they're not acting on right now. In other words, money represents their true self to them. That's their translation of it. $1 million represents me being able to do what I want to do, which is something I'm not doing. That's why it's alluring for me to think of money, because that would mean I can actually do that. But that points you to a limiting idea that you have, that you cannot fully act on your ability, on your desire to be, to express yourself fully, and that you're waiting for something else to come along first. This stagnates the flow. This stagnates the stream. This stagnates the body, makes it rigid and solid, instead of malleable and flexible and free and alive and energetic. And any other portion of your beingness here will also stagnate to an extent. Whereas if you keep moving and you don't give too much, if any, credit to circumstance, and you keep acting on it, on your joy to the best of your ability, then things keep moving. You're not waiting, so life is not waiting for you. Because now it starts to reflect your movement, your change, your assertiveness, your decisiveness, your responsiveness, your responsibility, your ability to respond. All these exciting things that put you in the hot seat of being the empowered consciousness that you are, rather than the victimized consciousness to your own ideas. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? Yes? Thank you. Thanks for your responsiveness. How excited are you about your life? How interested are you in making your life your actual dream life? Good, right? No? Yes or no? Good. Good. Fear of disappointment? Interesting. Because I think this is quite disappointing, no? As it is already. So why Why be afraid of disappointment? Because your life already is disappointing, is it not? If it wasn't, you wouldn't be here. To some extent, your life is already a big fucking disappointment. So why postpone and repeat more disappointment out of fear for being disappointed? Doesn't make sense, no? Start moving. You're already a disappointment, but that's perfect. The more you start moving, the less of a disappointment your life will be to you. And this is not in any way judging. It's just an observation. It's just a truth. Is your life completely 100% exciting to you? If not, it's disappointing, no? It's just a simple statement. It's not a judgment. It doesn't mean you did something wrong, although you did. It doesn't mean that you are wrong. It just means you don't have or haven't had the clarity of how to live life. You've never been taught that. You've never created that for yourself for whatever reasons. But now that you do gain this clarity, now that you do gain this new information, now that you start to see more clearly how to move through life by simply moving, by simply being in flow, in faith, in confidence, in fearlessness, in courage, then less and less will your life be disappointing to you and more exciting it will be. What is disappointment? At the core of it, not the judgment disappointment. Oh, you disappoint me, son. No, the real disappointment of you with your own life, which causes depression, which causes out of alignment and all that. That core hard disappointment is simply you not being who you're meant to be, not being your true self, not giving into your true self for whatever limiting idea you've picked up along the way. That is disappointing. That creates the difference, that creates the gap, that creates the distance, that creates the separation, that creates the depression, that creates the disappointment. But as soon as you start acting and flowing and forgetting about circumstances, circumstances will start to reflect you more effortlessly because you become more effortless. And then everything gets solved, and it's less and less of a disappointment and more of an exciting journey. Are you interested in that? Yes. Good. Good. If not, that's fine, but then expect to get the same results. Expect to keep yourself disappointed. That's all. It's fine. I mean, many people tolerate it, billions of people tolerate it on this planet. Constantly, they're very spiritually awake in that sense. Right? They're very brain dead. There's many monks walking on this planet that don't even realize they're monks. So, it's possible. You know what's possible? It's possible to tolerate 80 years of disappointment, of core energetic frequency, hard disappointment. It's possible. You know that. It happens all the time, every day. It happens to the majority of people. It's chosen by the majority of people at this timing. So you know it's possible. You know where it leads. You know it's not that exciting, is it? You know it's not that safe. You know you're going to die anyway, right? Right? If you don't act on your joys, you're going to die miserable. If you act on your joys, you're going to die gloriously. And you leave this massive trail behind you for others to follow in their own way, but for others to track off of, you know, to be inspired by. And so you help the world by being an example, a testimony of greatness. You cannot be without ego if you keep yourself small. That's not the same thing. You can only be without the ego effect, without the ego tension, by living large. And large can be very simple. Doesn't have to look like my life, doesn't have to look like a base jumper, doesn't have to look like a rock climber. It can look like you taking care of your family. Nevertheless, however that shows up as relevant for you, it has to feel great, it has to feel expensive, it has to feel inspiring. That is the hallmark of an inspiring life. Not what you do and how others judge it, but how good and expensive you feel about it yourself, because that's what's relevant to you. So living a life of greatness can look very simple, or can look very athletic. Doesn't matter. Either way is fine. It's the same. As long as it's inspiring to the person that's acting on it. And when you do, you will inspire people regardless. Many that you will never meet. Not because they'll read about you, although that's possible too, but because energetically you're helping people around the world that you will never physically meet. And it will never be mutually, physically, verbally recognized that you inspired them, that you lightened up a portion of their consciousness for them by acting on a joyful way, by living life in a great way. Therefore ego-free, because you're being yourself. We're all meant to be great. Why would the Infinite One create a portion that is somewhat mediocre and redundant and not really effective? Would it really want that? That is greatness. That is true alignment. That is the disappearance of the ego, is to be small and mediocre and keep yourself back, hold yourself down all the time and feel responsible for everyone else. That's not greatness. That's not joy. That's not freedom. That doesn't reflect the infinite one, does it? No, a life of greatness, of freedom, of joy, of inspiration, of decisiveness, of courage, of fearlessness, of commitment, of resolve. A life of true resolve is reflective of the one, because the one is completely resolved. It knows. Absolute knowingness. So act in that frequency and you will start to know as well, and you will start to flow as well. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? Does that excite you? Good. Excellent. No, great. Then let's go to the questions.